You lollygag the ball around the empty. You lollygag your way down to first. You lollygag in and out of the dugout. You know what that makes you, Larry?
Lollygag.
Lollygaggers.
There's chocolate all over this ball.
Look, Mr. Buttermaker, quit bugging me about my food. People are always bugging me about it. My shrink says that's why I'm so fat. So you're not doing me any good, so let's quit it.
Hi, I'm Rookie Bobby.
And I'm Cal Naughton Jr.
We like to have a lot of laughs on the racetrack, but today we want to talk about something serious. Packs of stray dogs that control most of the major cities in North America.
I hate hockey and I don't like kids.
What was supposed to be, a pep talk?
Look, I'm sure this will be a real bonding experience. Maybe one day, one of you will even write a book about it in jail.
You're gonna lose all your fancy foosball games, and you're gonna fail your big exam, because school is
the devil? Everything is the devil to you, mama!
If you can dodge a wrench, you can dodge a ball.
What?
Oh my God, they shot him!
Hot lips, your incredible nincompoop is the end of the quarter.
Hi, once again, everybody. Welcome in. I'm Ed Berliner. Thanks for joining us here on The Man in the Arena and the fastest show in sports. How the hell are you? It's not like anything's happening as we do the show, right? It's just another quiet Friday. Everybody's waiting for the 5 o'clock cocktail hour to begin. Everybody says it's 5 o'clock somewhere. Oh, trust me. Since about 8 o'clock this morning Eastern Time, it has been 5 o'clock somewhere in the world, especially in America. In America right now, I'll tell you what, this is the point where the cocktails started flowing at about 2 o'clock in the morning, and they're going to go on all weekend long. And it's not just because of sports, though, of course, when I mention all that, I'm going to say that we are going to talk mostly sports today. But then again, with what's happening in America, sometimes you got to go a little bit past that. We have the NFL, we have the NHL, we have the NBA. We got so much to talk about. Plus, we got a whole new member of the crew that we have to welcome in here. I mean, when you have something this big, you got to run with it because it's taken a couple of weeks. He has not been with us for a couple of weeks because he has been on assignment. It is a pleasure to welcome back once again the former player agent, the current attorney, the man whom I like to call the smartest man in the room for so many reasons. It's a pleasure to welcome to Outside the Lines. Joe Casale is back in the show. How you been, partner?
Oh, pretty good, Ed. Back from the puppy lab.
See, you ruined it.
Emerged from the white smoke billowing.
You ruined the whole thing. It's like you gotta wait. It's the whole build up to what's coming up later because now you have joined the crew, brother. You are part of us now. You know, you are the true dog dad, and it's great to watch that happen as it's gone through everything in your Facebook pages and everything else. But we'll definitely talk about that because we got a long way to go and a short time to get there. Let's go ahead and get started, shall we? Because as I did point out, it is one of those days where it would seem like no matter what you want to do, everybody's cocktailing at this point in time. And everybody's been cocktailing since about, 2 o'clock this morning because of everything that has gone on. The President of the United States, Donald Trump, is suffering from COVID-19, as many people said he probably would sooner or later. The announcement came out after Hope Hicks, his close assistant, also announced that she is suffering from COVID-19. And we are not going to deal in any of that because everybody wants him to get sick. Come on, let's move past all this. Joe, this proves what you and I have been saying for months. Leadership and actions matter. If you have the actions that lead you to actually lead, then a country may be better for it. But what we have seen right now is we're higgledy-piggledy in this country right now because everybody's talking 25th Amendment and what's going to happen, and you've got people screaming. I swear to God, there's a Republican congresswoman who's saying that this was a Democratic plot, and they planned this at the debate, and they infected Donald Trump with COVID-19. That's how far we've gone. And, Joe, where do we go from here now, except to start drinking?
Well, I said this morning there are 2 undefeated teams in my lifetime, the 72 Dolphins and Karma. And
it's
and that's kind of where we're at. Listen, President has ignored scientists, he's ignored doctors, he's held super spreader events, he's mocked people for wearing masks. He did everything except yell, inject COVID into my veins. So you can't be surprised he's got COVID, but there are far-reaching ramifications of this. He's 74 years old. He's obese. He is high risk. I will add that he now has a pre-existing condition, and under the Trump healthcare plan, he would lose his health benefits, but that's an aside. But the bigger
it's
issue
an aside, but
is,
it's worth mentioning in the fact that we're heading towards an election. It's worth part of the conversation.
Yeah, and the bigger issue is who's leading the country right now. And the other big issue is when you've told over 20,000 lies in 4 years and you have little to no credibility, it's hard to get people to believe anything you have to say. And right now, this is pretty serious stuff. We have a president who is ill. We don't know the extent of his illness because no one is forthcoming with that information. We did hear that supposedly Vice President Pence is tested negative today. The third in line for the presidency is Speaker Pelosi. So far, we have not heard any reports about her condition, but she should be quarantining right now. Because if you
Well, she did indicate that immediately. She took a test on Friday morning and she was waiting for the results. Her concern was that she had been around Steve Mnuchin, who is around the president on a regular basis.
Correct.
So that immediately leads to the possibility of the contact tracing issue here. And what you're talking about is, at the debate, few Republicans, including the Trump family, bothered to wear a mask. You have Republican lawmakers who are going to events and are proud of it here in the last couple of weeks, that they have been going to events without masks or without social distancing. And you are now looking at the possibility of this spreading. This isn't just a Republican thing. This can spread to everybody here. So everybody is now at risk. And by the way, Democratic candidate, former Vice President Joe Biden and his wife have tested, and they tested negative, according to what's happened. But still, you've got to be concerned, Joe. Look, we're not doctors. We just play one on TV. This takes time. It's not like it happens automatically. This could still destroy certain parts of the nation and hurt other people within the next couple of weeks, months, even.
Well, it's very serious. I mean, you're talking about a president who's ill. They held an event to introduce Justice Barrett as their Supreme Court nominee. Senator Lee from Utah was there. He tested positive. He was not wearing a mask. Nobody there was wearing a mask.
And the president went to an event in New Jersey at Bedminster.
Guidelines need to be quarantined for 2 weeks.
Well, the president also went to an event at his country club in Bedminster, and no masks, no social distancing whatsoever. And he knew at that point, everybody knew that Hope Hicks was testing or was not feeling well. So they already had some thought going through this. It is, Joe, it is mind-boggling, the lack of responsibility that goes through this from a grown man.
Yeah, it's lack of responsibility, it's lack of respect for others, and it is a Republican strategy throughout the campaign season to act as if COVID-19 does not exist. And now we're finding out it not only exists, as we all know it exists. There's 207,000 dead Americans who can testify, who we could show exist. Millions others infected. The problem that we have right now is you have a president who is ill. And when that happens, all bets are off of where we are as a country right now. So this is very serious. We could sit and play the karma game. We can sit and talk about all that. But the reality of it is, if you look back into our history, when a president is ill, we as a nation, we have issues. I mean, our enemies are watching.
Let's talk about that, because
the stock market's watching all of this. All of the far-reaching ramifications of having a president who is ill, and we don't know his condition, and we don't know if it will improve or worsen. We can all play the speculation game all we want, but a 74-year-old obese man is a high-risk person under COVID-19, and he just happens to be president of the United States. This is serious stuff.
Well, what you're dealing with here is, while the stock market is watching and reacting immediately, which is, of course, one of his big to-dos, that he will always say that he's the stock market president, you have individuals, presidents, security officials, whatever you want to call them, watching in North Korea, in China, in Russia, in Pakistan, in India, in other nations that may not be friendly to the United States, because there is the possibility of a power vacuum. And when you have a power vacuum that works its way into the situation, you have those outside influences who are looking to take advantage of it. So, Joe, while people are saying it's just a cold, no, it's more than that. And the 25th Amendment, which I think a lot of people, boom, I woke up this morning and I could see my feed was filled with people all talking about the 25th Amendment because it talks about the president being infirmed. It doesn't specify what that infirmity is going to be. But if at any time a president would seem to be close to not being able to handle his or her duties, they have to pass over power. They must transfer power to somebody, because if the president goes into a coma, God forbid, look, nobody's wishing that the guy dies. Let's stop that nonsense right here. I don't wish that on anybody. Well, okay, there's one or two from when I was growing up in Greenwich Village that I still do, but that's another story altogether. You still have that possibility where if he lapses into a coma or an infirmity where he's unable to think cogently, then you have a real problem that affects the United States. So are we not looking at, without going nuts on the 25th Amendment here, Joe, and yeah, people, trust me, we are going to get to sports before we're done. We got a lot to do. Is it not fair to say that let's not make that jump yet, but any logically thinking president would look at the way things are going right now, and if things get worse, you have to write the letter and you have to pass power to somebody else to oversee while you're recuperating, yes?
Well, the reality of this situation is the president should resign, and should resign
today. Is that going
today.
a little too far, though?
If he's concerned about his health and his family, that really is what should happen, because right now, I don't care what's coming out of the White House. Yes, COVID-19, he's not able to fulfill the duties of the office. You are already needing to plan contingencies, getting the Speaker of the House quarantined, getting the Vice President ready. The part of the problem here, Ed, is that this could have been a super spreader situation. We don't know how many people were in contact with the president during all this. I mean, this is serious stuff. This isn't the common cold. This is something that has killed over 200,000 people. Over 5 million people have been infected by it. I mean, if he's not going to resign, okay, then contingencies have to be made for if that takes place. They're not going to put off the election for 2 weeks. They're not going to delay anything. I mean, time marches on. I mean, the reality of life is, we have to have someone running the country. Whether you like the person or not like the person, we have to have someone running the country. Okay,
but hang on a sec. Let me play devil's advocate. Complete devil's advocate here. Yes, the president has tested positive for COVID-19. Yes, there is the possibility that he is unable to take care of his daily duties. There is that distinct possibility out there right now. But resignation, isn't that going a little bit too far? Because he is still president, he is still elected, he is still able to understand what's happening to him at this point. And there's still a very good possibility that he will recover and he'll get through this with he'll have his symptoms, but he'll still be president and he'll still be bodily able to function mentally and physically like the majority of people are in America. Isn't it fair to say that instead of just jumping to a resignation?
We don't know that. Two, there's a real argument of whether he's functioning mentally as it is right now. See, part of the
we've had that argument since he was 20, but that's another issue.
But part of the problem that we have with this White House and this president is their lack of transparency eliminates any benefit of the doubt people are seeking. And, I'm humored by the tone police today. I see all over, we want the tone police to take place. Well, this is not a tone situation. We need a president who is able to do the job. If he is sick and he can't do the job, he can't be president. Period. You're talking about a contagious virus that has killed over 200,000 people. He has it. We don't know how many people around him have it. His wife has it. His closest aide has it. They held events where more people are turning up positive. This is serious stuff.
Well, it does show a lack of responsibility immediately. He's completely irresponsible when it comes to the country and the people around him, without a doubt.
That's right. So he has an oath of office to be able to faithfully execute his duties as president. If he cannot do that, he cannot be president. Period. You have a healthy vice president waiting in the wings. If he cannot do his job, he's going to have to resign. I will also add, I know we live in the world of conspiracy theories and he's faking it.
As I mentioned, yes.
Yeah, he's not faking this. I mean, first of all, Donald Trump is a grade A narcissist. There is no way in the world a grade A narcissist is going to fake being sick because it is showing a sign of weakness. He is not popular enough to gain any sympathy votes from those who are disinclined to vote for him. So it's just, that's not the case. He's sick. And I would also venture a guess to say, and I'm guessing because of the lack of transparency from this White House, is he has been sick as in showing symptoms for the past few days. Because if he was asymptomatic, they wouldn't even say he was sick. So obviously there is something wrong. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. I mean, yes, you can say, well, people, he has a 96% recovery. People throw out all these numbers, but the fact of the matter is someone in their mid-70s who's obese and who has other health issues, he moves up into the high-risk category in this. And I'm not even talking about the stressful nature of the job, which raises the category even higher with regard to high risk. So it's a very serious situation. The president of the United States is ill, and he's seriously ill. This is a serious illness, and we are a rudderless ship right now. And that is a scary proposition for, as you mentioned, not just for political reasons. It's our enemies abroad who are watching all of this. So it's scary times.
To make the transition,
and we don't know where this is going to go from here, except to know that the odds that we will receive honest and truthful information from this White House is next to nil. And that makes it an even scarier situation.
Which moves on to where I want to take this, which is the leadership and actions matter issue, which will eventually get us to sports in so many ways. But it is the actions which people can see. When you are mocking the maskers, when you are saying that, oh, I carry my mask right here, I just don't need it, and when you make fun of your opponent at the debate, as he did about Joe Biden standing a couple of 100 yards away, and you can see him wearing a mask at all times, which shows that the man is absolutely doing what needs to be done. But when you have that sort of mocking attitude that's there, we can see that it has led a good portion of America to look at him and go, oh, come on. It's a flu. Don't you see that? Look, he's fine. Everybody's fine around him. There's no problem. Sure, people are getting sick, but the president is proving to us that we don't have to wear the mask. And then you have places like Florida where Governor Ron DeSantis has whipped this state open to the point of basically saying, go ahead, do whatever you want. Now we've got the president who's infected. Doesn't this lead us now? Don't logical, sane, common sense people have to just pull this back a little bit and say, the guy lied to us over and over again. We've got to go back. You've almost got to go back and close up the country. Look, Donald Trump has almost led us to a point where you're going to have to go back and close up the country again, thanks to him, not thanks to anybody else. But isn't this part of the actions matter? What you say and what you do, more than what you say, makes a huge difference in how people react.
I've said this from the beginning of this epidemic, that on the first day of the Corona Task Force, if President Trump walked to the podium wearing a mask and said, look, I know this is uncomfortable, I don't like doing it, but we've all got to wear masks, we wouldn't have had 200,000 people dead, we wouldn't be in the 7th month of the country being closed, and we wouldn't have the business and economic fallout that we have right now. If he led that way, we would not have a problem. Instead, he ignored doctors, he ignored scientists, he ignored everybody except his base. And now here we are 7 months later. He is trailing badly in the polls. He is not going to win this election. He is sick. We are a rudderless ship, and we're still not receiving any honesty. We are in a situation in Washington right now where I don't know how Congress can stay in session with senators and aides and president turning up positive. We don't know if this is a super spreader situation or not. And the person who has now got the president's ear is not even a doctor trained in infectious diseases. Scott.
Oh, you
Atlas
mean you're talking about Sean Hannity? Sorry.
Yeah. I mean, so it's a mess. And it is a mess because of a lack of leadership. And there is a touch of irony. He basically flaunted all of this in everybody's face, and now he's sick. I mean, nobody is celebrating that. I think it's more of a cautionary tale that, yes, even your hero can get sick if you don't follow the protocols. And think about this, Ed. This is not just any person getting sick. This is a person with round-the-clock medical attention.
With the best medical care in the world.
Every day. This is a person who basically could have been in his own bubble to protect himself from being sick. And that didn't happen. A luxury that a lot of us Americans do not have. So it's a sad, pathetic situation, but not a surprising situation. I woke up this morning, I wasn't surprised when I saw the news. I mean, it was only a matter of time. I mean, you're trying to buck science, and, science is always going to prevail.
I still have some very good friends in and around the Beltway, and I get calls from them occasionally. I get text messages, and many times they're cryptic because they have to be that way as they communicate. Some are in the press, some are not. And I recently received one from one of my friends who told me, and this is maybe the third time that we've gotten this message back and forth, where it's come back to me in certain ways, how in the White House, members of Donald Trump's staff, members of the White House staff, are told many times, do not wear a mask, don't be concerned about social distancing, do not be concerned about taking any precautions, because the president is very upset by this, and the president is not comfortable watching people around him taking precautions for COVID-19 because he simply does not believe in it, and he does not find it something that he wants around him. So you have an edict, if you will, that has been perpetrated around the White House from people there. And quite frankly, as we tape this show on Friday, October the 2nd, as we go live right now on Friday, October the 2nd, you've got people in the White House who are scared spitless, because these are the ones who've basically been doing as they are told to keep their phony baloney jobs, to keep the paychecks coming in, and to stay a part of the federal government, because they're all hoping that by being close to Donald Trump, they'll turn into something down the road. They're going to turn into something. They may turn into a cadaver before it's all said and done, but that's part of what has happened here. You have a White House who has told its own people, do not be concerned about the necessary things you need to do to keep yourself safe and healthy. That's frightening.
Well, Ed, the philosophy of denial, denial is not just a river in Africa. I mean, you cannot function denying the existence of this virus. And now, I'm humored by the fact that there are Republicans today who want us to take COVID-19 seriously. And I almost want to say, we're the ones that have been taking it seriously. I don't know where you've been, but this doesn't make me take it any less serious. It's a function of an example of when you flaunt protocols, this is what could happen.
All right, let's go ahead and move on to some sports here, because I said that this would eventually slide into sports and leadership and actions and so many other things. The National Football League has finally got themselves a problem where they have a game that they had to cancel because of COVID-19. I have been saying for some time, and Joe, we've talked about this, the National Football League is driving their players to the point where they almost are willing to gamble with the lives of their players to keep themselves alive, keep the league going, keep the money flowing in, Because in essence, that's what they've done here. They've put their players' lives at risk. Nobody's died yet, thank goodness, and nobody's gotten to the point where they've had to be put on a ventilator. But doesn't this tell us that there is a deleterious manner within the National Football League where they're sending the message? We don't give a spit about the players as long as we can get the games underway here. And unfortunately, I think the players and the Players Association are buying it.
Well, I think, look, it's professional sports. We're seeing it in all the other sports.
But they've got it right. This is the NFL.
Because everybody is trying to keep the money flowing. They're trying to stay afloat. And so there's a risk involved. I think, to the NFL's credit, this was the first game that was canceled. They've had very few positive tests, which is a miracle unto itself. Listen,
but it's a gamble,
Joe. There's
going
to be these kind of flare-ups. The difference, I think, Ed, between the NFL and, hockey and football,
which we'll talk about momentarily. I do want to talk about the NHL and the NBA.
But I think the difference between the NFL and the other sports is the windows are tighter for making up games. It's like baseball has outbreaks and teams can't play. You're working around a schedule. With the NFL, everything is so tight and compact. If all of a sudden a team can't play 3 games, there is no vehicle to make that up. Like with baseball, we'll just schedule 2 straight doubleheaders. It's inconvenient, but we're going to do it. With football, you can't do that. So that the challenge the NFL is going to have as the season unfolds are going to be these windows that are so tight that if there is, God forbid, an outbreak, and all of a sudden there's 3 or 4 teams that are not able to field a team, it's going to throw the schedule.
Well, I think that's my point. It's a precipice that they've been sitting on, and they got caught with a few teams here that are involved in this. And granted, what you're saying is true. They've done a good job to this point, but we're still in the very early stages of the season here. We're not even halfway through the season that they've had. And again, I'm going to go back to the gentleman who sits at the lead in Florida who has said, don't worry about it in Tampa. We're going to open up the doors for the Super Bowl and invite as many people in as we possibly can. And the NFL, you haven't heard a word out of them, not a peep, because they're going, okay, long as we can keep quiet and we know the money's coming in. To me, it's just bad management, bad transparency, and they're using their players as gambling chips.
Well, I mean, look, I think the players have signed on to this, and the players understand the risks as well. Look, football's a risky business without a pandemic. But the reality of this is that these leagues made a decision, players and owners, to go forward and try to make the best of it. And it's full steam ahead. I mean, I think it's going to be hard, especially if we do get hit with a second wave of this in November or December, how this is going to impact the league. But again, Ed, all of this is an example of bad leadership. We haven't had any quality leadership in this, which should cause all Americans a concern when it comes to elected officials of stop electing people who don't serve your needs. I mean, what we're going through in Florida right now is we have a governor who opened up a state, and in the last 3 days, we have had a record number of cases.
Yes.
3 days. What's it going to be in 3 weeks?
And they're not old people. We're talking about younger people who are getting bagged for it.
Absolutely. It's so the whole thing is a disaster. And, people ask me what you should do. And what you should do is exactly what the protocols are. Social distancing, wear a mask, don't go out into the bars and restaurants. I know it sucks that you're stuck inside, but it sucks even more being put on a ventilator. So, I mean, really, you just have to be smart, and you have to stop being selfish. I think if anything, Ed, what this has taught us is that our selfishness is more dangerous to the country than a nuclear bomb, because it's our overall selfishness is what put us in this situation. And if we can just dial down the selfishness a little bit, we can get through this.
Yeah, I got to tell you, I had to, for personal reasons, I had to take my first COVID-19 test in the last week. And It was no big deal. The place I went was a drive-in. I was there 5 minutes, very professional. Nobody was even there. Rolled up, took my information. Nurse came out, took it in, stuck it in my nose, was gone, and I was out of there. But I have to tell you, the stress of the 2 days I waited, maybe I could have gotten my results earlier. But they give you a card, which I think I even have somewhere, which has numbers on it, and you call in, you text, whatever. The stress of those 2 days, because we've done everything right in this house. I mean, we really can't. I'm from a house that has a medical background in it right now, and we have medical professionals in this house. So we're as careful as we can possibly be. And I'm going to myself, oh, come on. I'm fine. And we don't go to restaurants. We just go to the store and get what we need. We've been to a couple of places here and there, but we're not pushing it. I was, and I'll use the real word, I was scared shitless for 2 days, worrying about whether or not I had this, because I don't know where it's coming from. I don't know, and I can't control anybody else. I have the masks. I've got this one here. I've got 2 in my car. I've got 2 by my front door. We had a repairman come into the house today who was not wearing it properly. I made him stick the damn thing over his nose, and I put mine on just in case, because I just don't want to take any chances at this point. We can't control what anybody else is doing. We can only control ourselves. So right now what I'm trying to do is at least control myself, and I think that's what you're talking about here. You got to control yourself and hope that everybody else is getting it right. Unfortunately, that hope is absolute bullshit, because we know other people aren't getting it right. That's why I look at the NFL and I see a league that's just worried more about the money than they are worried about the players. But it's scary when you got to take those tests. It really is.
Oh, there's no question about it.
I don't want to do it again. I know I'm going to have to for family reasons and other things, but I don't want to go back and do it. Let's move on. We mentioned the NHL and the NBA, and I want to talk about them a little bit, because the National Hockey League and the NBA really got it right. National Hockey League went through the Stanley Cup Finals, and while I think the players and everybody were ready to chew their arms off having to be in Toronto and Edmonton for that long a period of time, the games were awesome. The competition was incredible. The Tampa Bay Lightning are without a doubt the best team in the National Hockey League. And boy, that hurts to say that, but I got to say it out loud. But they did it right from top to bottom. The NBA, a few moments at the beginning, but they've done it right. They're now in the finals, and they're getting it right. It's that bubble concept. So are we looking, Joe, that the NHL and the NBA, this bubble idea, because COVID-19 is not going away next week, next month, next year, even if we do have vaccines. Are we looking at the bubble as being the model now for where every sport is going to have to figure it out somehow, that they're going to have to bubble their teams in their games somehow, some way?
No, and I'll tell you why. The expense of it is too much. If you added up the expense that the National Hockey League and the NBA put into their bubbles, you're looking at over $400 million. You can't lay out $400 million a year
and no fans
to play your games. It's impossible. And you're also in a situation where the players are not going to sign on for that again. I mean, it was one of those things where everybody got on the lifeboat once. They're not getting on the lifeboat again. I think what you're going to see happen is both the NHL and NBA won't start their seasons until next January and February, and see where they are at that time. I don't, and make assessments accordingly.
But aren't they going to have to do something? I mean, look, and I get what you're saying. The money loss, you can't have that every single year, else you go out of business, and you've got to have fans in the stands. But aren't we looking at some kind of a modified bubble system or something? Because I don't see. Look, because you and I both know that not everybody is going to take this vaccine. There's no, I mean, probably.
Well,
Ed,
if
they hit 50-50 at the beginning when the vaccine first comes out, you're lucky. So if you don't have people who take it, you're still going to be looking at the possibility of infecting more people. I don't see how you're going to put 150,000 people in a college football stadium ever again.
Well, again, it's going to be really, let's assume for a second Joe Biden wins the election. It's going to be how does his administration handle this? And do we believe the information we'll be receiving from this administration? With Ron Klein, who is basically his infectious disease specialist, and Andy Slavitt, who will probably have a role in the administration, you're going to be getting more reliable information than you're getting presently. And that is going to drive a lot of the decisions that the professional sports leagues are going to be making in the coming months. I don't think they have to make a decision today or next month about doing, a bubble again. I think what they need to do is put off their seasons, and I think they're going to do that. Again, what I do is I kind of model what Google's doing as kind of a gauge of where things are. And they're telling a lot of their employees that they're going to remain working from home until next summer. And they've modified that from next July to next June. So you get an idea of, if you're thinking about concerts, if you're thinking about outdoor events, what that means. But again, all of the information that we have right now, as we sit here on October 2nd, says there's no way you're going to have fans in the stands next January or February for NBA games. But will you be able to play your games in your designated cities? We don't know that yet. So I think that's going to be the key thing. I mean, Ed, it may be a year where next year all of the NBA plays its schedule, but there won't be any fans in the stands, but there won't be a bubble. We just don't know.
Well, but let's look at that from the other side. For instance, let's just take, for giggles, we'll take New York City and Madison Square Garden. I can't see the public health officials in New York City allowing anybody into the Garden to watch a game. Miami Arena, I can't see the public health officials there saying, let's go ahead and open up to 15, 17, 18,000 people to come see a game again. I mean, Certainly they can try to put a few people in there. But 5,000 people? You're still going to have people milling about, and you're still going to have the possibility of infection. I don't know how they're going to do this.
But if by January or February you can play games in your arenas, but you can't play with fans, then that's going to be the modification you'll see. I would be surprised personally if we see bubbles again, because the expense factor and the human factor. I mean, you talk to players who are in that bubble, that's a tough way to go. And you could sit here and say, oh, they make millions, blah, 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 blah. You get into an environment where the only two things you can do is three things: eat, go to the arena, back to your room every day for 3 or 4 months, and you get back to me.
Yeah, I have to believe we're going to hear a lot of psychological stories out of the players from both the NBA and the NHL, who are going to talk about how they went nuts. I mean, from the Bruins standpoint, Tuukka Rask left early because his wife had a young child. They had a young child at home. He was feeling very bad about it. Apparently, she was not happy either. There was family issues that he had to take care of. And if you talk to the people involved, they'll tell you that the man was very depressed about being away from his family. And I got to believe there were others as well.
Oh, absolutely.
And who would say, look, I missed the birth of my child. I missed the birthday of my child. I missed my grandmother's whatever. I can't see anybody ever agreeing to do this again, which is going to bring the players' associations into this. And the negotiations, I think, are going to be heinously angry in a lot of ways.
I think that everybody tried to, everybody did it this year because everybody wanted to try to make it happen. And yes, money had a lot to do with it, but I also think that a lot of the leagues felt an obligation to, hey, let's try to put a show on. Let's try to help the country at the same time. But to do it again a second time, I don't see that happening.
Yeah. All right. One thing I did want to mention here when it comes down to the NHL and the NBA, and seeing as we are in the NBA Finals right now, the Miami Heat have done so much with so little in comparison, if you think about it, because at times it would seem as if they've almost put together a patchwork lineup. They filled this hole, they filled that. They've had superstars leave. I still say that without question, and I picked the Miami Heat to win the NBA Finals anyway, so I'll stand on that. I got nothing to lose. It's okay. That is an organization, when you look at the culture, we talk about culture. many times. Pat Riley has instilled what is a brilliantly team-oriented culture in the Miami Heat. I think that, and not only that, but Erik Spoelstra has got to be the best coach in the NBA, period, end of story, walk away, because of what he's done in keeping that group of players together through some very difficult times. Joe, I think if you're going to take the culture of an organization, take the Miami Heat, the way Pat Riley, Andy Ellisberg, and everybody down there has put it together, I think it's the best in professional sports, period.
Well, I mean, the thing that you have to like about it in this era of, we talk about tanking and the process, basically losing on purpose to try to win down the line, the Heat doesn't tank. I mean, we're going to do what we do. I mean, they've had 15-win seasons. They've had NBA championship seasons. They have signed some players they shouldn't have signed. They have found ways to move on to those players and improve the team. Last summer, a writer for ESPN said the Heat had the worst salary cap and draft situation in the NBA, and here they are in the NBA Finals. They found money to sign Jimmy Butler. They found players like Duncan Robinson and Kendrick Nunn. They drafted Tyler Hero and Bam Adebayo from Kentucky. You know, when you have good people and you let them do their jobs and you stay out of it. You know, Mickey Arison is the ideal owner.
Mickey Arison is the best owner in professional sports, period, end of story.
Jerry Jones.
Arison gets it. He walks
lets
away.
These guys do their jobs. And the thing that you look at the Heat, look at the longevity. Andy's been there forever. Spoelstra's been there forever. Adam Silver's been there forever. Chet Kammerer's been there forever. You go down the line, all of the PR people, Tim Donovan, Rob Wilson, these guys are all double-digit guys. That tells you that's an organization people want to work for. Kim Stone cut her chops there, and now she's running the arena in Golden State, in a state-of-the-art arena. I mean, you look at what the organization has done from an expansion team to now. It's staggering. And you know what? That works. If you're the NBA, you want that to be your model and discourage tanking and say, look, you can build your franchises like this because that is what we want. We don't want tanking. Tanking didn't work in Philadelphia. I know people are going to die on that sword and come up with 1,000 reasons why, but tanking didn't work in Philadelphia. No. And tanking, by and large, doesn't work. And taking an outlier and say, this is the example, that's not the example. And I think the Heat really show how it can be done. And it's, you know, for us living down here, it's pretty cool because whether they win or lose this final, this is the floor of this team, not the ceiling. The odds are this is going to be the worst Heat team over the next 4 years. So it's pretty exciting.
Well, that's just it. And to me, I think you hit on it. And I think that's a good point to start at. Mickey Arison owns the team, and he hires Pat Riley. He lets Pat Riley run the team. He doesn't get involved, as far too many owners do, and you and I have seen it far too often in our careers covering sports. Pat Riley brings a winner's culture. He doesn't treat the guys like babies. He doesn't treat them like old men. He treats them like men. He treats them straight up, forward, talks to them. Erik Spoelstra does the same job. There's no egos involved in this team. And that, to me, is the big key here. You brought up this list of people who have been there for years and decades in many cases because they're respected. It's an organization that has a winning culture, and they respect each other up and down the platform here. And I dare say that there's not another franchise in the 4 major professional sports that does it as well, but it comes down again to we don't need the greatest of all time. We don't need LeBron James. We can still win without him, and I think that's what happens, Joe. Everybody gets so focused on these GOAT players that they say these are the guys who run it. And look, the NBA is one of the most selfish sports in the professional leagues of all time when it comes down to their players. But the guys there win because they know that they're in it for a team basis. Look at it. It's a team sport, and the the Heat do a team concept better than anybody else because they treat everybody with respect. And that's the key.
Look,
they just don't do that in a lot of sports anymore.
Sports is hard. I tell people all the time, sports is hard. It's a hard business. Look, Steve Ballmer is a wildly successful businessman. He's a wildly successful executive. He buys the Clippers with tip money, basically. He's worth $40 billion. He spent 3 or 4 to buy the Clippers. Great. I'm going to put Kawhi Leonard and Paul George on the team, and I'm just going to win. I got Doc Rivers to coach. He's got an NBA championship. Players like Doc Rivers. It's not that easy.
It's not that easy.
Now you see what happens. This is a hard business. And listen, as great as Pat Riley is, and there are very few people on the planet as big a fan of Pat Riley as I am, he's made his screwed ups. But here's the difference.
But he learned from them.
When Riley screws up, he doesn't have to worry about getting fired by an emotional and petulant owner. The emotional and petulant owner says, clean it up. And Riley
walks back to the owner.
Do his job. Whereas in other sports, the emotional and petulant owner is makes the emotional and petulant move and fires the coach or the GM. So you're in a constant state of turmoil. So you're never building a culture. You're just constantly, flipping the cards and hoping, sooner or later they stand on end. That's hard to do. This is a hard business. If it was easy, then everybody would be successful at it.
If it was easy, everybody would do it. All right. We got to close out on a positive note here because I mentioned we are welcoming Joe into the fraternity after all this time. Everybody knows who reads my Facebook page, my Twitter, whatever is on this show because we've done it. As a matter of fact, earlier this week, we had a great interview with a gentleman named Peter Rourke, who is the co-founder of something called Dog Is My Co-Pilot. He lives in Wyoming, and he flies rescue dogs from places like Texas, Louisiana, and he flies them to Wyoming, to the Pacific Northwest, to places where people want dogs. And this is a charity. They do it. They raise money for it, and I'm hoping to help them raise a tremendous amount of money. I'll do anything for the puppies. Joe has been missing for a few weeks, and while he tried to be quiet about it, thankfully he let me in on the secret a little bit early on, so I knew what was happening. Joe Casale, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, is now a proud dog dad because now in his home, sleeping somewhere comfortably, trying to find something to chew up at this.
Yes, I keep looking over my shoulder to see if he's got his mouth around the arm of the chair.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Tasso has joined the family of Casale.
There it is. There he is.
Why?
Looks like an angel is a terror.
Okay, now, first of all, before we get to the story.
That's the look after he heard John Sterling's home run call on Gio Urshela's grand slam the other night.
No, that's the look he gives you when you're pouring an espresso.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's what, because that was one of the first things you posted.
When he hears the machine, it's pretty funny.
He hears the sound of the espresso. What is the name Tasso? Tasso. What is that name?
It's a Cajun ham. He's a Cajun dog. I named him after a Cajun food.
It would only figure that you would have to get one from
from
the bayou.
Louisiana.
So, I mean, this was
only 9 months
you did
old.
it right.
He's a trip.
You went through and you found a rescue, which is the whole thing. And I keep telling people, adopt, don't shop. It's the most important thing. If I have my druthers, one of these days I'm going to lead an effort to shut down every single pet store in America. Every single one that sells dogs, cats, birds, bunnies, I don't care. I want them shut down and out of business because I'm tired of what they put these animals through just to sell them, especially these little tiny boutique dogs that they sell. So you adopted. Give us the story here, the quick story on how you found Tasso and then how you brought him home.
Well, he was abandoned a few days before the Category 4 hurricane in Lake Charles, Louisiana. So he was in his shelter in the Lake Charles area. Then he was transferred to another shelter in New Orleans. And then he was adopted for a day and returned. And then we were able to adopt him. So It was. It's been a wild few weeks.
And also,
the wildest part about this is that this dog has slept through this entire interview, and this dog never sleeps.
Well, that's wrong because it's showing, I guess he's saying something
treats
about the quality of the interview,
today.
which has me already pissed off. I'm going to have to talk to that dog right here.
I mean, he is out on the couch.
So you are already, according to one of the pictures here,
too loudly because he understands that word and he makes a beeline to the kitchen where the treats are.
I found it interesting that one of the pictures that you posted was the one here on the right, because somebody sent you, I guess, a whole box of pee pads and they didn't last long at all.
Oh my God. Yeah, I get a box of pee pads. Today is a rainy day in South Florida, so I figure, well, maybe this will be the day to test it. So I put it down. And he shredded that, because he's a chewer, so he shredded that like it was a plush toy. So I said, I don't think the pee pads are working with this little guy. We'll have to pull out the golf umbrella, which we do, and go on the walks with him covered. Because let's understand something about this dog. He does not like to put his paws in wet grass. So what he does is he walks on the sidewalk, and he walks on the bricks that are on the plants around the development, not on the dirt and not on the grass during the rain. So the dog is already a freaking prima donna. Well, I've only had him for a couple of weeks.
Look at who his dad is. His dad is going to spoil the daylights out of him. I mean, you had dogs before. It wasn't like this is your first dog.
I mean, I haven't had one for 20 years, so it was a long time. But, I've been thinking about it during this whole COVID period. But it kind of had to be the right fit at the right time. And when I saw him, I just said, I got a feeling this could be it. And so far, he's been great. I mean, he's got a hell of a personality. He's very playful. He has some issues with regard to abandonment. You can see certain times where what has happened to him over a 3 or 4 week period, kind of comes back to roost. And like the other night, there was a bolt of thunder that hit just outside my door. As it sounded like a plane crash. That's how loud it was. And he jumped and just started shaking. So you can imagine a dog going through a Category 4 hurricane, what that was like. So he just, so he camped out on the couch all night. I camped out on the couch all night with him, and he slept, and he's been fine since. But he's a trip. He's a lot of fun to have around.
Well, I mean, of course, you've got to know that one of the things Joe did right away is he got the dog on his bad side, because that's the cone of shame is only used for one thing when you're 9 or 10 months old.
The neutering. This is his last day of the cone of shame, though. So there's a lot of excitement in the Casale household because we're going to be able to get rid of the cone of shame. So he's very excited about that.
And I'm sure Daddy will have an espresso for him. Well, welcome. I'm going to have to now get you I'm going to have to get you. And it's funny when Joe picked up Tasso and he told me, I'm sitting here and I'm instant messaging Joe. I'm going, okay, here's what you got to do, and here's the kind of food, and here's what you do, and you got to grab this, you got to do this. I am like throwing out every single thing that we have learned over the years with our kids, and because I'm thrilled. I mean, that's just it. You've now become a dog dad, and you've now got to get the shirt that says dog dad, you got to get the bumper sticker that says dog dad, and you got to do all these things right now, and I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you.
Yeah, well, ask me in a month.
He's not going anywhere. It doesn't make a damn bit of difference.
I don't mean he's not going anywhere, but
he's there for the long haul. That's all. All I'm going to tell you is there's a key: bully sticks. Bully sticks.
He kills those things. I mean, it's like it's a joke. This dog can chew. It is unbelievable. I bought him a bone in New Orleans. And the place where I bought it, the woman said, well, this will keep him occupied for hours. It was gone in 25 minutes. He just destroyed it. So I said, hours? No chance. The only thing that keeps him occupied for hours is the tennis ball. We can throw the tennis ball and he will run for hours with the tennis ball. And the reason why he's exhausted right now is we had a rigorous 1 hour and 21 minute. I timed it. 1 hour and 21 minute tennis, throw the ball and return it session. So I could wear him out so I could do this. and he has been worn out on the couch. Out.
Congratulations. Keep feeding more of those pictures to Facebook and keep letting us know. He's only 9 months old. He's got a long way to go, and now he will become as he. By the way, you don't give him any of the espresso, do you?
No. You know what happened though?
Jesus, please.
The second day I had him, you're gonna die. The second day I had him, I made an espresso. I put it on the table. I went to get a newspaper. I came back. He was on the table drinking the espresso. No. And I went, "What are you doing?" And he looked up like, you caught me. And oh my God, he was so wired. And I said, I have to drink standing up to make sure he doesn't get on the table. So everybody tells me obedience school is coming, but
it is.
We'll cross that bridge when we come to it.
But remember, you're training the human. You're not training the dog.
Oh yeah. Yeah, no doubt.
So everybody
and
thinks
I need a lot of training. Trust me.
People still think that they take the dog to obedience school and all of a sudden, bang, the dog immediately becomes perfect and gets everything right. It took us, with our kids, took a year, and we're still training them, constantly. That's all we're doing, and we're teaching them tricks and little things. The difference is, see, you have a Doxy that chews everything. I have a Beagle that eats everything.
Yeah.
So that's the huge difference. I got to keep her from eating everything that walks, talks, is anywhere around her. Congratulations.
Thank you,
really.
sir.
Outstanding to be a dog dad. It's always a pleasure, my friend. We'll see you back here again. Hopefully, we're all going to get through this because, holy crap, we're going to need some help before this.
Yeah, it's been a hell of a year. I'd be glad when it's over. That's for sure.
Oh, man. You have no idea. You and I have talked about a lot of things this year, and this year's got to get over really fast. We got to.
Yeah, every day I wake up, I say, is it December 31st yet?
It is.
I mean, really, it's tough.
We go live at 3 o'clock Eastern Time, 12 o'clock Pacific Time on the show when I do the Man in the Arena. It's coming up on Cocktail Hour, and I'm going to enjoy this one. There ain't a doubt about it. Joe, thanks a lot, partner. Take care. Man.
Good seeing you.
All right, buddy, you too. Tasso has now joined the organization, baby. That's right. The new Cajun in the Casale household is there. We're going to have to see if we can get him together with the kids over here sometime. Hey, listen, everybody. Take care of yourself. Wear the damn mask, will you, please? Social distance. Watch what's happening. Be careful, please. It's you. It's your family. It's so many others. Take care of yourself. And as far as social media is concerned, lay back a little bit, really, and just have a good time for a change and have a decent cocktail. For Tasso, for Joe Casale, everybody here, I'm Ed Berliner. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Until next time we meet on the Man in the Arena, rock on, true believers. See ya! Be sure to stay connected on social media with questions, comments, conundrums, you name it. It's at Berliner Speaks on Twitter, Facebook, and on Instagram. A great place to talk business and learn a lot more about what we do is simply check us out on LinkedIn. Just go there and search out Ed Berliner. A reminder that every single episode of The Man in the Arena is uploaded to YouTube. Just go to welcometothearena.com, or if you're on YouTube, search out Ed Berliner Media. If you would prefer to listen to The Man in the Arena, every episode is available for download on all the major audio podcast platforms. The Man in the Arena is produced by Entourage Management, LLC, and Entourage Media.